Welcome back, friends, to another surprise special guest Sunday on 1111. Today's surprise guest is a person who brings calm with her wherever she goes. Just by talking to her, your day will flow just a little bit better. She has a great sense of humor, is unflappable, and is a professional in a field I very much love. So, with all that said, surprise mystery guest, will you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks so much, Joy. I hope I can live up to all of that. My name is Blanche Boyce, and I'm an acupressure therapist. So that's like acupuncture, except I don't use needles. And then I also teach Tai Chi and Qigong, and those are both very gentle movement based arts that are based on the principles of Chinese medicine. So they're extremely good for you. And Joy, I do happen to know that you've got a bit of a Tai Chi and Qigong practice as well. Is that right?
Oh, yes, but for much less noble reasons. I got interested in it because I'd been in martial arts and I'd also been involved in ballet in my youth. And when I found this beautiful, soft martial art, I couldn't resist it. And when the teacher taught us, and now you throw your opponent into the trees, I just thought it was it was the greatest thing ever. I started with Tai Chi and then found Qigong afterwards, and I do a combination now. But there's nothing like the way those practices make you feel. It's like going to the spa, I believe.
It is. Yeah. You do it for yourself. They're absolutely wonderful.
Mhm. And how'd you get into those practices?
Well, I can only tell you serendipitously, I believe both practices found me. I've always kind of been interested, even since I was a teenager, in a little bit of psychic stuff and a bit more of the esoteric aspects of life. I have a degree in philosophy, and all of those things kind of got put on the back burner as I became a homeowner and started having children and that sort of thing. But a girlfriend asked me to do a Reiki workshop with her. And so we went off for this weekend thing. And while we were working on this young woman, I think she was 23, 24, she was paralyzed from the waist down.
Mm.
And she was just starting to go under, and she said the words, "I do my Qigong every day." And I had a visceral reaction to that. I had no idea what those words meant. I'd never heard them before, but I knew in that moment that I had to find out what this was and to pursue it. And that moment changed my life. I went home. This was in the 1990s, so I didn't just go home and Google Qigong. I had to do a bit of research and find a teacher and whatnot, but I did. And yeah, my whole life changed.
And how did you then work into Tai Chi? How did that find you?
I was belonged to a what's called a winter club here. I think I was playing racquetball, and they had somebody come in and teach Tai Chi, and I thought, oh, I'll go check this out, and so I did, and again fell in love with that. Since then, I've studied it for close to 25 years, I guess, and now teach it as well. The other kind of serendipitous thing was my whole acupressure adventure because I had no idea what that was either. I really didn't even know a whole lot about acupuncture at that time. And there's a whole big story with that. I'll tell you a little bit of it. I was in a bookstore, a great big bookstore, Chapters, just before Christmas one year, and I was looking for some books for gifts, and the place was a zoo. It was just incredibly busy. So I thought, that's it. I got to get out of here. Standing in front of this bank of books, I stepped out to leave, and this guy pushed a huge trolley of books at me. I literally had to jump out of the way, or he would have knocked me over. And in that moment, I thought, geez, this is just like something you'd see in a movie where the person would then close their eyes, pick a book, and open it, and it would change their life. And so I thought, oh, what the heck? I literally closed my eyes, I picked a book, and I opened it. And it talked about if you touch these points on the body, and it was specific points, that it would help with your breathing and your lung capacity. Well, at that time, I was also a martial artist, so I was doing martial arts. And I had a lot of trouble catching my breath, particularly when I was sparring against these young 20-year-old guys. So, anyways, the book piqued my interest, and I bought it. I stood in line for I don't know how long to buy it. brought it home, wrapped it up, put it under the Christmas tree, and completely forgot about it. Opened it Christmas morning. I thought, oh, okay. So after the, Christmas hoopla, I read it, really enjoyed it. And then I went to pick up my daughter who was working at a used bookstore at the time. And she said, Mom, I'm just going to be a couple minutes. Would you mind waiting? I said, no, no problem. And I started wandering around the bookstore and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try that again. So I literally closed my eyes in front of this bank of books. I picked a book, and do you know it was on exactly the same subject?
No.
And I thought, I'll bet there's no more than 5 books in the world written on this, and 2 of them have presented themselves to me. So that started my whole journey into acupressure and finding a class and all of that. There's actually more to the story. It goes on. I mean, but anyways, I did find a class, and again, that kind of changed my life as well. So
We would love to have you on again in a few months, and then you can tell us more of the story.
sure, be
You know,
happy to do that.
one of the things I love about Tai Chi and Qigong is the preventative aspect. They stave off so many things because of that flexibility. I've noticed I've embarked on an adventure in tiny living. My place is only 343 square feet, and my home had been 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. So this is very different for me. Dealing with a special needs bulldog who can't see, I'm having to be in strange positions and tiptoe and round. And I've noticed I never trip, I never lose my balance, and I credit it all to Tai Chi. It's really helped.
Absolutely. It makes a difference for flexibility, balance, strength, all of those things. And that's just the physical stuff. There's also the mental, emotional, and the spiritual aspects as well. So yeah, absolutely. And Qigong in particular is also used for remedial care, both prevention and remedial. So yeah.
And I actually didn't find Qigong until the internet era. I found my teacher online of all things. And I'm very grateful that these sorts of practices are now available that way, which we will talk about later with what you do, because sometimes the teacher that is right for us is geographically not feasible. So it's wonderful to think that we can still work with the person that is best for us and get the kind of training that works best for us, regardless of location. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of your work?
Well, just how it changes people's lives. It makes them so much healthier and often happier as well. In terms of the acupressure, sometimes I see a difference in how they actually look between the time they come in and when they leave. The comment that I get most often is, I had no idea how stressed I was, because
Mhm.
it just melts away a lot of that stress and tension. So yeah, that's one of the rewarding things. Also, I love introducing people to, particularly to qigong, also tai chi, and then all of the concepts that go with it, why it works and how it works, and what happens in your body from the perspective of Chinese medicine, not just from the Western exercise perspective. So those are a few of the things that I really love and find rewarding.
That's what I love about your particular practices. You've integrated every aspect of it to give a full experience so people can take advantage of all of the different parts of it that will benefit them instead of it being just sort of piecemeal, like this will make you feel better or this will help you be more flexible or stretch. You're really coming at it from every angle to have it be a very holistic approach to how to just live. I love your approach to it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel very blessed to have the knowledge that I do. So, for example, in my Tai Chi or Qigong classes, if people are struggling with something, I can give them a bit more or suggest why they would do a movement and how to just maybe tweak turning their hand in a certain way to help them with their health benefits. And also with my acupressure clients, if they're game, I'll give them a couple of Qigong movements that they can do at home or between sessions so that they can start working on themselves and speed up their healing process.
See, I love that. You literally look at the entire thing and see how it all works together. And also for their individual bodies as well. How does the whole work together? Oh, I just love your approach to this whole thing.
I mean, that's one of the major differences between Chinese medicine and Western medicine. Western medicine, we look at, okay, they've got this disease. What do we do for this disease?
Mhm.
Whereas Chinese medicine, we look at the individual and say, okay, what's going on in this person's body that they would get this disease? And how can we treat their body overall in a holistic way so that that disease is able to move on or move out of the body?
I think it was Zora who we just interviewed recently. I think it was in her episode, she mentioned that Chinese doctors were paid to prevent the family from getting sick.
Yeah, that's correct. So they were giving a stipend, I guess, to keep as long as the person stayed healthy, then they were paid. As soon as the person got sick, or if they did get sick, then that money would stop and not continue again until the person was better. So there was real incentive to keep people healthy. And the other thing is that the individual had a lot of say in their own health. So we tend as a society to go to our doctors and have them tell us what we need to do and what's going on with us. Whereas in the Chinese model, at least the way it used to be, the individual was as important, their opinion on things and how they felt, they know their body best, usually, was as important as what the doctor had to say. So they worked together to help with the health.
I love that. And there's so many underlying issues too. What other things people are going through that may manifest physically, and that person is the one who knows best what's going on inside.
Absolutely. And that emotional aspect of health, Western medicine, we're coming around. We certainly acknowledge now that stress can impact us physically, but that has been a part of Chinese medicine, or how our emotions affect our physical health for probably a couple thousand years.
Oh,
So it's a whole different outlook on health.
it sure is. What about your work has surprised you the most?
Well, I guess maybe that part of it, that reciprocal relationship between our physical health and our mental emotional health. So we can do things physically to help us emotionally and mentally and also spiritually, and also how our emotions can affect our physical bodies. So that relationship, I think I was quite surprised by that when I first started learning more about Chinese medicine and, in particular, acupressure therapy. That kind of surprised me how much of an effect there is.
Probably a happy surprise, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because it means that we're not stuck with having a mental emotional problem or a physical problem indefinitely. There are things that we can do. And I guess the other thing that I really love about this whole thing is that we can affect our own body. We can have a huge impact on our own health. We don't, necessarily have to go on medications or surgeries, those sorts of things. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that if your doctor has decided is good for you and you believe in that. But I think that there are things that we can be doing for ourselves. And we've got to give more credence to that in our society, I think.
Yes, we're not a one size fits all type of healthcare situation. Everybody's so individual, and treating the whole is going to get us much further than just treating the symptoms. So I'm very grateful when I see that. Are there any misconceptions about what you do?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I think a lot of people feel that Tai Chi and Qigong are for older people, and probably with good reason. I mean, in China and some of the Asian countries, people start Tai Chi and Qigong when they turn 50. And that's because they know that it will be very good for their health and their longevity as they move into that, what we call the second spring of their life. So yes, probably proportionately, there are a lot more older people that do these arts than there are younger people, but it's still so good for you if you start at a younger age. Another misconception might be that it takes years to do this, and like anything else, it does take years to master these arts, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do them. It takes years to master being somebody like a Rembrandt or a Da Vinci, but look at the profusion of adult coloring books there are out there now.
Yes.
We can do these things and get benefit from them without that mastery aspect. And they are lifelong arts. So it's not that you learn how to do this and do it a few times and then you're done. You continue to do this and you continue to benefit from it. Another thing might be that, you have to do this for an hour or a couple of hours at a time. The way I teach Qigong is if you can do 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there, that's way better for you than doing, if you do that on a daily basis and doing, I don't know, 3 hours on the weekend or something. There are little things that you can do that will help your health. Obviously, if you can do a bit more, that's great. But honestly, 5 or 10 minutes here or there can make a difference in your life.
Thank you for saying that. I've never admitted it to anybody, but when I do Tai Chi in the morning,
Mhm.
it takes 15 minutes.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely.
And I started in my 30s actually, but I'll never forget the first time got to do a class that was outdoors. Oh,
Hmm.
it meant the world to me. It was this fellow who is some sort of doctor, I can't remember which, Western medicine doctor, and he just loved Tai Chi so much, so he'd do it for fun, teaching, and we got to do it on the beach facing the ocean.
Nice.
Oh. And, it was hard because of the sand and balance, but it really, helps with all that. And I'll just never forget the experience with that gentle breeze coming off the waves onto you. And I think during every class, there would be a moment where I would get choked up thinking, do I realize where I am and what I'm doing?
I teach in the summertime both Tai Chi and Qigong outdoors too. And what I tell my Tai Chi students is, when we're practicing indoors and the floor is even and the temperature's nice and there's nobody walking by to distract you, we can look at our outside experience as being about life. Life isn't always perfect. Sometimes we have to step carefully or we have to
Yeah.
deal with this particular distraction or that thing. And that's all part of how Tai Chi affects our life. We try to live in the harmony of the moment, but these other things do come in. They play a
Oh,
part.
yes. And I teach I'm not a master like you, but when I teach, it's outside, and I have a different take. I like yours better. Mine is more like getting people out of the gym because you've got recirculated air and you've got the sweat and you've got the noise and sometimes that loud booming music. And it's just a completely different atmosphere as opposed to being grounded in nature, seeing the sky overhead
Yeah.
when lean back, taking in that fresh air, hearing the rustling of the leaves as you're turning. And if you do it barefoot, getting that earthing experience, there's just nothing like it. Very much appreciate doing it outdoors.
Yeah, me too. In my qigong outdoor classes, I often bring in the different elements. The woods and the ocean if we're happen to be by the ocean or the river, the sunlight, all of those elements you can kind of bring into the practice. So yeah, very nice.
I'm feeling great already. I feel like I'm doing it. Here's a question for you. Is it difficult to balance the logistical aspects of being an entrepreneur with your goal of helping people?
Well, I think like most people in the healing arts, if we could just do our work, we would be thrilled if people just found us and came to us.
Mhm.
Um, it's the whole idea of the marketing and trying to sell what you do to people. I think that's the part that for most of us, logistically, we would prefer not to have to do, but it is a part of our world and how we do business, I guess, how we survive in our monetized world. So yeah, that's I don't want to say it's a struggle, but I think most of us would prefer not have to deal with that sort of thing.
Well, I think you've already answered what was to be my next question was I was going to ask you what's been the biggest challenge as a solopreneur. Would that be it?
Well, that's, yeah, one of the things for sure. I think also part of my learning was that I don't have to do this all alone, that there are people out there who can support me, and particularly in that marketing aspect and the business aspect of things, because all of my training, the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've spent on my training over the years, none of it was on running a business. But there are people out there who can help with that. And then I guess the other thing is investing in myself. So sometimes I've had to do that to hire an assistant to help me, even though I wasn't bringing in the big bucks. But like I invested in myself and my training, I had to invest in my business as well. So that was another thing. learning to adapt. So, boy, when the pandemic hit, my classes were shut down. My clientele for my acupressure business pretty much dried up. I mean, I had a few brave souls that came, but nothing compared to beforehand. So, like a lot of people, I then switched to doing online, and that was a lifesaver. So, all of those sorts of things, being prepared to talk about what I do. When I first started, I didn't tell very many people that I did this type of work. But now I know that if I want to have a business, I have to do that. So lots of challenges.
Is there anything you can tell us about any sort of symbiotic relationship that exists between your online and in-person work?
Well, I have quite a few of my local Qigong, online Qigong clients. Our students are also my in person Tai Chi students. And you probably know this from your own practice, Joy, that every good Tai Chi teacher, master also has a Qigong practice
Mhm.
because that's where you really build up the Qi and then you can certainly move it with the Tai Chi. So there is that kind of symbiotic thing, I guess. One of the things that I really love about teaching Qigong online is that I can go much deeper into the material. And I love all the concepts and the knowledge. I love to share that. So my classes are recorded. So if somebody happens to miss, they can watch the recording. Whereas when you're in person, you don't have that, and I would find that I'd have to review the same material a number of times because so and so missed and then this person missed. And so I just simply couldn't go as deep. So that's one of the things that I love and appreciate about the online part of it.
For the online aspect particularly, could you kind of run us through what a session looks like, how long it lasts, what you cover, all that sort of thing?
Sure. So I teach weekly online Qigong classes. We almost always start with about 10 minutes of breath work because that's so key to everything. And then I do a little bit of a warm up, and that can change, often changes week to week. We might do some stuff that semi looks like Western exercise. Usually, I'll kind of work through the parts of the body just so that people are limbered up a little bit. And then we'll do some Qigong. Sometimes we do a meditation. Sometimes there's a bit of theory. So over the last few months, we've been in kind of winter season, and in Chinese medicine, certain organs play a bigger role at that time of year. So we have been over the last 3 months been working on the kidneys and the bladder. We've also been working on the bones, on our hearing, and a little bit on the brain because those things are all kind of tied together in Chinese medicine. As we move more into spring, we'll work a little bit more on the liver and the gallbladder, on the tendons and the ligaments, and also on our eyesight. And then summertime, we'll do something different. So I tend to have my classes move with a seasonal flow to them.
I love that. No one's ever going to get bored or think, "Oh, we just did this last week." It's keeping it ever new, evergreen. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
And how long is one of the online classes?
Um, usually they're an hour.
Oh, that's fantastic. And they're you said they're recorded, so if people miss it, they can watch it later?
Yes, I have everything, all the recordings put in a Facebook group called the Qigong Club. People have access to not only last week's recording, but also about a year's worth of classes. And some of them are things that I'll keep up forever because they were things that were happening in our society at the time. And so I've addressed those and we've done some Qigong around certain things. So those will stay on indefinitely in there.
What, if any, shifts have you noticed, especially in an industry that's been around for thousands of years? I mean, the practices have been. Have you noticed that are there any shifts as far as either the way people now understand these practices and come to them, or just within the industry of professionals in general?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is these practices are much more well known today than they were certainly when I started. I had to really research to find, a qigong class, And then the other thing is that whole transition to online. There's so many people now that have gone online, and I'm sure they do it for the same reasons that I have. It's just it's a wonderful way to teach, and also you have access to more people. I've had people over the years who've said, "Well, I'd love to learn with you, but there's no way I can make it to a class where you live." And so now they can, which is great. I will say one little bit of caution there. Just with my level of knowledge, I have seen some people that have gone online who are great with the online stuff, but really don't know, the Tai Chi or the Qigong, as the case may be, mostly Tai Chi, I'm thinking of, don't know it particularly well. Personally, I don't think they should be teaching, but people see this as an opportunity. And I guess somebody that doesn't know better wouldn't understand how good or not good they are.
Have you run into any charlatans?
I wouldn't say charlatans, but
Right.
I do recall, oh my gosh, one young woman, I thought she had a good spiel about what Tai Chi was. And so I stayed on and watched a little bit more of what she was doing. And oh my God, I don't think this woman's ever taken a class. I think she's looked at a picture book or something.
Oh.
But it was pretty funny.
What is something you can share about yourself that people might not expect?
Well, like you, I also got started originally with martial arts, and I'm a third-degree black belt. I was well on my way to my fourth degree when the pandemic hit, and I am sad to say I have not gone back. Just gotten into the other things, creating online courses as well as teaching online, and that's become a bit more of a passion for me. So, but there I am. I'm a third-degree black belt
In what specifically?
in taekwondo, but the school that I was at, it was a husband and wife. They were absolutely wonderful, and they brought in all kinds of other martial arts, particularly for the black belts. They brought in judo, Krav Maga, ninjutsu. They even, for the first degree black belts, had a Tai Chi segment, which I thought was wonderful. So they were very rounded in what they brought to the school. So that was great.
Mine was Kung Fu Sansu,
Ah,
and then Aikido,
yeah.
and then that's when I finally was like, "I know exactly what I wanna take, it's Tai Chi." I just but I was just drawn to it, so I finally had to succumb. We've added a new question. Generally, I have the same panel of questions, more or less, for
Mhm.
each guest because I want to get their take on the specifics, to hear about their story with it. But a new one that we've added, we'll see how it goes going forward, would be what are your three favorite movies and why? This will give our listeners a peek into your soul and values. So, how would you answer that question?
Well, I would answer it this way, Joy. I probably haven't watched 3 movies in the last 5 years.
Okay,
So let's go with my favorite books, because
you got
what
it.
I did about 4 or 5 years ago is I set a goal for myself to read 50 books a year. Now,
Oh,
I have yet to attain that, but I tell you, I have read some fantastic books, and I have good friends who belong to book clubs and who were former librarians and that sort of thing. So I always get recommendations for good books. And I'll tell you a couple that come to mind that I read last year. One was called The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. And it's a historical fiction about a female Russian sniper in
oh,
World War II. And I tell you, it was fascinating. She had more hits than most male snipers, and she was actually brought over to the US to help get money from the US government for the Russian effort in World War II against the Germans. And she went to the White House, she met Roosevelt. She also became quite good friends with Eleanor Roosevelt. And so there's a little bit about that aspect of her story. I thought it was fascinating, really fascinating.
oh, yes. And so to give us two more.
Okay. All right. How about Four Winds by Kristen Hanna? And that's also a bit of historical fiction. It's about the farmers in the 30s. They had all the windstorms and the farms didn't produce anymore. People left their states and moved to other states, and how they were treated in those other states. how the government eventually paid the farmers to farm differently, to teach them how to farm in a way that would not decimate their fields and their crops. So I found that was really interesting. And then let me see, the third book probably would be Finding the Mother Tree, which is by a local British Columbia woman. She was a or is a professor of forestry at the University of British Columbia. And this is a bit about her life, her personal life, and also about her research, which was looking at how trees, whether or not they communicated with each other. And what she discovered was that trees not only communicate with each other and other types of plants in a forest, but they all support each other. And so she had to go against a little bit about the old boys club and the whole philosophy that in order to help something grow, we clear the area out so that nothing is competing with the new plants that we're putting in. And contrary to that, she found that no, other plants don't compete, they support. So that was just a wonderful book. And I actually had a bit of, I discovered part of what intrigued me was that the book took place in a small town that I grew up in. Part of it did. And I found out after reading it that her grandparents, who she referenced a few times in there, were very good friends with my grandparents. So that was kind of fun for me.
Oh, you're kidding. What are the chances?
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow. Oh, I just got goosebumps. What are you looking forward to next?
I'm in the process of coming up with a couple of new ideas for online courses. I've got a couple of Qigong courses that I want to teach that way, that in putting into an online course format. And then also I do another type of healthcare called Shampasage. And I want to create a course around that as well. And that's based a little bit more on Ayurvedic medicine. And then more immediate, we're moving into springtime and summer, and I am looking forward to not only practicing outdoors, but also teaching outdoors.
Well, would we be able to get some links to some of these things coming up if people want to take the online courses?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to give you those. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. On Sundays, we like to give our listeners gifts. Perchance, have you brought anything with you today?
Well, sure. I have a demo video of called Harmony with Motion, and it is three kind of very simple qigong movements, but they're powerful. So I'll do a demo with those. You can go through those with me. And I also accompany that with a PDF on explaining the movements and what they do. And I also talk in that PDF about what qi is, what the benefits of it are, and how it differs from Western medicine or Western exercise. So it's a great resource to have, I think, and I know people will enjoy the movements.
Well, I know I'm looking forward to unwrapping those gifts. Very much looking forward to it. In our non-interview podcast segments, the other days of the week, we assign listeners a tiny task each day. What sort of tiny task would you like to assign our listeners today?
Well, I mentioned that I start my classes with a bit of breath work. So let's have people do that. And this is a wonderful idea that you've got, Joy, to do this. So, what I'm going to suggest, kind of three parts to this. So, the first thing is that when you breathe, you're going to close your mouth and breathe just in and out through your nose. And I know that that seems like something that we do without thinking about it, but you'll be amazed at how often we revert to opening our mouth to breathe. We actually get more oxygen into our body by breathing through our nose. So, first thing is to close your mouth, breathe through your nose. Second thing is to put the tip of your tongue on your upper palate just behind your top teeth. And what this does is it opens up a couple of flows of energy in the body. And when those flows are open, they support all of the chi in the body, all of the chi flow through the different meridians or pathways of chi, the life force energy, and they also support all of the organs in the body. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is when you breathe, you're going to breathe into your belly. So when you inhale, you're going to feel your lower belly expand. And when you exhale, you're going to feel it contract. And this, along with breathing through your nose, really helps to move the diaphragm. And that in turn is going to massage all of the internal organs. So that's a very simple practice. You can do it while you're sitting, while you're standing, while you're at a stoplight or waiting in a lineup somewhere. You can do that easily. Nobody else has to know that you're doing it. And I would suggest that you start with maybe just a dozen breaths, doing that maybe once or twice or even 3 times a day, and try to get your body to have that be your natural way of breathing. It is our natural way. If you look at a baby breathing, you'll see that that's how they breathe. But we have gotten away from that. So, pretty simple thing to do, but again, very, very powerful.
And you can even do it while listening to your guest on a podcast, as I
Yes,
was
you
doing.
can. That's a great idea.
Well, I wasn't going to miss this chance. I was loving every second of that. Thank you, Blanche. That was fantastic. Let's see. What advice would you give to someone who isn't sure if they're capable of doing Qigong or Tai Chi?
Well, give it a try. I mean, why not? If you have any sort of injuries or difficulties, generally, if you've got a good teacher, they'll give you a couple of adaptations, ways to do things to adapt to your body. For me, I always tell my students, whether they're brand new or have been with me for quite a while, we only do 60 to 70, kind of max 80% of what we're capable of. That way, there's no chance of injury of any sort. So, you've really got nothing to lose other than maybe an unhealthy body by doing this. So just give it a try.
And I would also like to add that this is the thing I usually advocate. If somebody is injured and they're looking for something physical to do, this is what I send them to,
Yeah.
because it is not going to jar you like what they used to call high impact aerobics. Tai Chi and Qigong, these are the things that are not only going to help you reduce injury and heal injury, but you're just going to feel like $1,000,000 doing it, and you'll be able to stick with it. Whereas you might not be able to stick with something else if you're going through something difficult physically. This is the one to do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, this has been a pleasure. Thank
Oh,
you very much, Joy, for inviting me to do this. And I guess if anything that either of us have said today about Tai Chi or Qigong sort of resonates with you, then use this as your opportunity to look into what else there is out there. Use it as your nudge. I like to think that the universe sometimes gives us nudges to help us to do something or point us in a direction, which is certainly what happened with me in terms of qigong and acupressure. So if any of this resonates with you, then by all means go and explore it a bit more and be curious. And who knows, it may change your life as well.
and in Blanche's case, the nudges come by book trolleys almost running her over.
Mine aren't nudges; they're people knocking me over the head.
With books, no less. I love it. Well, Blanche, you know how much I've been looking forward to this. And this has really inspired me to do more with my practice, because it's been a busy time the last few months. And
Yeah.
between that and we've had a lot of rain in Southern California, which is a huge blessing. But you put those both together, and I'm not doing my Tai Chi and Qigong like I should. So thanks to you and Mother Nature giving us spring now. I am
Yeah.
really looking forward to getting into it, and definitely to checking out the online opportunities that you have for us to participate with you there. This has just been such a treat, Blanche. Thank you so much. Is there anything, do you know any Chinese at all? Is there any sort of send off you could give us in Chinese, or have I really put you on the spot with that?
You put me on the spot here.
Okay. Then I will use the language that we use, which is called Naturim. Our traditional send off translates in English to above all, love. And that is pronounced Cheris de Somme. So, with that, I will say thank you so much for listening. Look forward to the links that I'm going to be posting that will take you to this wonderful demo that Blanche is giving us, and any other links that she has where you can go further and check into it for yourself. The good news is this is something you can do year round. So it doesn't matter when you pick it up. Get those links, even if you find that you can't do it right now, When this airs, it will be right before tax season in the United States, so you may need a couple weeks, but there's never a wrong time to get started in this. And when you're ready, Tai Chi and Qigong and Blanche will be ready. So thank you all, everyone. And Blanche, mwah, big kiss and a hug, my friend. And with that, we will say goodbye.
Alrighty. Bye for now.